Uh, what's up, everyone? Snarky up here. We are doing Podspiracy number 2, starting off with Tupac, moving into violence, and more. So stay tuned. We're on board with Jackal MRB. He's right there on the screen, and you'll be able to hear him the whole time. So go check him out, and let's get right into it. We're going to start with Tupac. Jackal, go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
Alright, so my name's Jackal. Most people know me by Matt. Just a basic everyday streamer, trying to have some fun.
Love that, man. So let's jump right into Tupac here.
Alright.
So you want to go over the facts first, or you want to tell me your theories?
I mean, I don't really have much for theories, I never actually knew a whole lot of the details until I started doing this research. A part of me always believed that he was still alive. At least part of me wanted to.
Right.
But I never really looked into any of the theories or like the facts facts until now.
So I'm in the same boat. I'm 24, gonna be 24 this year, so like I really didn't experience much of Tupac at all.
Yeah.
And this week did a bunch of research on it. So I went through a lot of conspiracy theories. I went through the facts, what we actually know, and what everybody's saying's happened. I think they're really fun. Definitely something to look into for anybody that hasn't.
Sure.
So this all leads back to 1996. Tupac actually went to the MGM Grand Casino to watch a Mike Tyson boxing fight.
Right.
I actually don't know who Tyson was fighting that night, but I'm sure he won.
Yeah.
And as they're leaving, he got in a fight with a guy named Orlando Anderson. I guess he was a Crips member. And when that fight finally broke up, that's when him and his record producer Suge Knight left in a car together. We'll keep going with some facts here and then talk about the theories behind it.
Yeah.
So as they're leaving, they ended up having to stop at a stoplight on the corner of Flamingo and Koval, and a white Cadillac pulled up next to him, and it's reported that the guy shot 14 shots at them, which is a little excessive, but I guess Tupac was hit by 4 of them. I think 2 of them hit him in the chest, then like 1 in the leg and arm. And when the police got on scene, Tupac was in really bad shape, but he actually wasn't dead yet, and they rushed him to the hospital. Suge Knight was the driver, and he apparently got hit by a bullet or shrapnel, but he never actually got admitted into a hospital. The first police on scene just said that he was bleeding from his head, and he didn't actually, there's like no record of him actually being shot. It's just him saying that he got shot and that the police officer said he was bleeding. And that's going to be important for a later conspiracy. Tupac was in the hospital for, I believe, 6 days, and then his mother finally, I guess, told them to stop the life support because they weren't seeing any progress, and she didn't want to see him like that. So that is the supposed story and all the facts behind it according to the sources. So let's jump into some theories. Do you have a favorite one, or do you want to start listing off a couple?
I mean, my favorite one is just that he lives in Cuba, but I couldn't really find much that supported specifically Cuba. I just found more things that he's just generally alive.
Yeah, I don't know why they picked Cuba. I heard that as well. And
I found one thing that supported Cuba out of everything that I read. That was some YouTuber took a video camera and started vlogging in Cuba and showing people his pictures. Like, oh yeah, he lives down the street. What?
Yeah,
Other than that,
Just this
No.
famous guy that's supposedly dead, and some
Yeah.
YouTubers like, hey, he's right here, guys. I found
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's probably the most fun one that people wanna list
Right.
off because a lot of them were really influenced by Tupac, and a lot of rap, at least in the '90s and 2000s, were influenced by Tupac. I don't know about the rappers today.
Right.
Seems like we've gone off a little off course, but um, yeah, one of my favorite theories, um, it's the fact that Eminem actually mentioned this in one of his recent songs, is that P Diddy, actually, Sean Combs, actually sent the hit out on him.
Right.
Uh, it's kind of like out of nowhere when you first think about it, but when I did some research, uh, Tupac was actually shot at before this event. He he was only like 26 years old, and he was already shot at prior to his death. Um, it was November earlier that year, or the year before that actually. So he was killed, or supposedly killed, in '96, and in '95 he was shot at in it was on the East Coast at P Diddy's area, I guess,
Mm.
his record area, and
Right.
the person that was caught and interviewed for that shooting, not the one that killed him, but the one for P Diddy, claimed that Diddy paid him to send a hit out on him. And then there was another person that went forward in the murder shooting that also said that Diddy paid him to do it, and it happened to be the cousin of the guy that Tupac got in a fight with at the casino. So if we go back, Orlando Anderson was the Crip member that he got in a fight with before he left, and the cousin of Orlando is the one that claims Diddy paid him to shoot him up.
Oh.
So that I like that tie together because Diddy's in the clear. People
Right.
people like joke about it. Like Eminem had it in a song, "Diddy, I know you did it," or "I know you sent the hit," and then he's like,
Hmm.
"Nah, just playing Diddy." But like, all Diddy has to say is, "No, it wasn't me. That's all just fake,"
Yeah.
and you don't hear of anybody questioning it.
I got some really interesting like facts that kind of not support that he's alive, but that further help the supposition, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, let's hear it, man.
So one of his last albums was titled "The Don Killuminati: The 7 Day Theory," but it has a like also known as of Machiavelli, Makavli, which most people are comparing to Niccolo Machiavelli, who was an Italian war hero, or not war hero, war strategist who faked his own death.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing of Machiavelli growing up in school, but
Right.
I wasn't aware of the album title that kind of links those together.
Right. Then other people, which I mean, this one's a little more far fetched to me, but Machiavelli, you can switch the letters around and make am alive. Okay. Which
I,
I mean, I feel like that's a little more far fetched, but
yeah, I love little word puzzles that people find
yeah,
like that.
for sure. And that same album, actually, the album cover is basically Jesus on the cross, but with like Tupac's face. So like, Jesus died and resurrected. That whole situation there.
Yeah, man, it seems like somebody was trying to set those clues up.
Right? And like it was one of 7 albums that was released after his death.
Yeah,
Interesting to think about, definitely.
yeah, somebody placed those there for sure.
Hmm.
And I guess that leads me into another theory that we have, um, and we can keep coming back to him alive because that's the best one.
Right.
But with the albums being released after his death and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, he was with Suge Knight, the CEO of his record label, on the night that he was killed. And another theory is that Suge Knight was the one that sent the hit out on him, because there was talks of Tupac leaving his record label. He had already switched lawyers, because I guess everybody at the record label had the same lawyer or something like that. And like a month or two ago, he left that lawyer and found a different one. And people were claiming that Tupac was going to leave the record label entirely. And obviously, if you're the CEO of the record label with this famous guy, this famous rapper that's making you tons of money, you do not want him to leave. um, and the storytelling behind that is actually Suge Knight owed Tupac money from previous records already. So on top of Tupac leaving, it also saves Suge Knight all the money that he already owed him, because you don't have to pay a dead man.
Right.
Oh, here it is. And the record label is actually called Death Row Records too.
Of course it is.
So Suge Knight being the CEO of Death Row Records, which was the record label Tupac was under. They're together the last night that Tupac was known to be functioning before he got shot. They're in the same car, and the drivers knew, or at least it seems like the drivers knew, that Tupac was going to be in the passenger seat and Suge Knight was the driver. So who else would have known that Tupac would definitely be the passenger of the car, or that he'd be in the front seat of the car?
Right.
So you'd think that Suge would be the only one that would know where Tupac would actually be in the car, and supposedly, I don't know how true it is, but Suge made a phone call before they actually left the casino. That could just be hearsay or just to make the story more fun, but
Right.
it's claimed that Suge Knight made a phone call, they left in the vehicle together, and then sure enough, Tupac gets shot. So the backing behind that is that it's gonna save Suge a ton of money. Tupac's not gonna be able to go to any other record label, and just the fact that the shooters had so much information, or it seemed like the shooters had so much information.
Right.
So Orlando Anderson, the Crip member, was also supposedly in that car, but he was killed like 2 months later before he ever had a follow-up interview. So it's almost like a conspiracy there too, but that could have just been coincidence, since he was part of the Crips, so he could have died at any time. All the gang violence over there.
Right. It's an interesting fact I just found.
Let's hear it.
So in Tupac's song "Ain't Hard to Find," he says, one of the lines is, "I heard rumors that I died, murdered in cold blood, traumatized pictures of me in my final states. You know mama cried, but that was fiction. Some coward got the story twisted." That song was released the same year of his shooting.
That is insane.
Right?
Do you know if that was one of the ones that was released before or after his death?
Trying to find it, but there's no date, just the year. It doesn't even say like what album. I think it was a single that was released.
That's crazy to think about, that he set up lyrics like that.
February 13th of 1996, so it was before he died.
Yeah, that was only like 7 months before his shooting.
Right.
So he releases a song saying that basically you all heard that he got killed, but that's not the truth at all.
Right.
Coming straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. And of course, all the connections with the number 7. Shot on September 7th. He was 25 at the time, so 2 + 5 is 7. He was pronounced dead at 4:03 p.m. 4 plus 3 is 7. Birthday was June 16th. 1 plus 6 is 7. He was killed 7 months after the release of his last album. I don't think that's true. And his career lasted 7 years.
That's really weird. Just sevens all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think he was in the hospital for 7 days, 6 or 7 days. I can't remember which, but it could have been.
I think so.
It was at least 6. It might have been 7 before his
Right.
supposedly his mom pulled the plug, I guess. You know, it's been so long. They actually recently, well, it's not that recent, but they kind of recently made like a Tupac movie or documentary with somebody else playing Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy was actually asked, the actor that played him was asked if he had any contact with Tupac's real family, and he claimed that the family, like, you could tell that Tupac was actually gone because of like his family's reaction, but that was after some guy asked him what he thought of Tupac still being alive and stuff like that. But that's just one person. I can't even think of the actor's name now, but he semi recently played in a role where he was Tupac. And I guess people have been saying that he looks like Tupac his whole life.
Wow.
Oh, little fact I found. We were talking about Diddy. Diddy's record company is called Bad Boy Records. And it was back then. It was basically like East Coast versus West Coast rappers. So Diddy was the East Coast with Bad Boy, and then Suge Knight was West Coast with Death Row. And another East Coast rapper that had a lot of feuds with him was Biggie Smalls.
Right.
And he's another popular candidate for the guy who either sent out to paid for him to get killed or was actually in the car. It's more likely, if it's true, that he actually paid somebody else. Like, it all kind of leads back to the Crips. At least most of the ones where Tupac's actually dead usually leads back to the Crips and somebody higher up paying some random gang member to shoot at him.
Right.
Yeah, Biggie. There's just a bunch of feuds between Biggie and Tupac, kind of because it's East Coast versus West Coast, but also Tupac. It was either an album or just a single song where Tupac said that he had an affair with Biggie's wife, and Biggie shot back with some other song that went after Tupac. And, you know, that could just be rap stuff, you know, a typical feud in the music industry, but back then rappers took it a little bit more seriously, so
For sure.
If that was true that Tupac fucked Biggie's wife, then you never know.
Yeah.
I do think the rap game was a lot harder back then. A lot more.
Yeah.
A lot more often you hear about people paying for somebody to get shot or going out and doing it themselves.
Right. Yeah, the only other thing I had was about Tupac's cremation, actually.
I haven't heard anything about that. Go ahead.
Apparently, Suge Knight paid $3 million for the cremation of Tupac. Which, I don't know if you know much about cremation, but normally it costs about $1,000 for cremation, not $3 million.
You know, that's really funny that you brought that up, because the research with the fact why Suge Knight might have been the one that sent it out was because Suge Knight actually owed Tupac $3 million. I shit you not. So if there is the story with Tupac escaping with his life and everything,
right,
that could have been the setup for Suge paying him off or paying him back. Because the story was that Suge owed Tupac $3 million. And then you just get this random $3 million cremation. Like, come on.
On top of that, Tupac's social security number was wrong on his death certificate, or like the cremation certificate. And the guy who allegedly performed the cremation disappeared shortly after.
covering the paper trail.
Right.
That's some crazy stuff, man.
Mm-hmm. Crazy how different pieces fall together when you connect them.
Finch, Divs, Bazza, Moki Girl, Gaming Noof, Colin, how are you guys? Hope you're enjoying the podcast. Hope you know a little thing or two about Tupac, and if you didn't, I'm sure you know now.
Yeah.
A really random, I thought it was funny, but a really random conspiracy about Tupac's death was from the JDL, which I guess is the Jewish Defense League. I didn't know that it was a thing, but I guess it's essentially like a Jewish ISIS, I guess. And there's just records of them like sending letters of death threats, but that's about like as far as the conspiracy goes, is that the US government like claimed that they're a terrorist organization and that there was paper trails saying that they had death threats on them. But like as far as the actual like murder of Tupac, there's nothing that connects them to it other than those papers.
Yeah. I guess there's theories that various groups of the government were involved, like the U.S. government. Whether it was the CIA killing him because he was giving voice and like motivation to street gangs. There's one that says the FBI put him into witness protection in exchange for info about other street gangs.
That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like if he is still alive, unless it was witness protection, like somebody would have found him by now. Like with how prominent social media is, and everybody has a camera on them now.
Right.
So that would make me think that witness protection would be a good theory, because that'd be one of the only ways I think he would be able to stay under the radar.
Right.
Unless somebody like hacked into government. Oh yeah, so and so is supposed to be protecting Tupac right now.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been 3 different countries that he's been allegedly seen in. Allegedly seen in Cuba, South Africa, and Somalia. Where it's all just been like somebody with a camera goes up to him, shows a picture, is like, oh yeah, I saw him the other day. Him and XYZ guy was driving in a car.
Exactly, Noof. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of connections that make you think that Tupac's still alive, but there'd have to be a lot going on to have it still covered up. I mean, I know there's a lot of things like slipping out the cracks, like we were talking about how Suge Knight owed him $3 million, and then his cremation was supposedly $3 million, and people claim to see him, all this good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, so many sightings. Yeah, like if you think about it, like anytime anything happens nowadays, somebody's gonna have a video clip of it on Twitter, and it's just gonna blow up. So
right. Especially with something as big as, seeing Tupac.
yeah, and
that wouldn't take long at all.
And I wonder if anybody's like done the, how a lot of when kids like get kidnapped and stuff for a long time, they'll have like pictures that show up of what they should look like now.
Right.
I wonder if anybody has something on that with Tupac, because it's been what, like 20, 22 years, 23 years. So he definitely could have changed how he looked a lot.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Especially living in Cuba, Africa. Yeah, some of those.
Yeah, I just wish if if there was more backing on the conspiracies where he actually died, like there's just so much that leaves it open.
Right.
So it would be really simple to say, oh yeah, the guy that he got in a fight with earlier at night was the one that killed him, Orlando Anderson. You know, the Crip member wouldn't put it past a gang member to shoot somebody.
Right.
But then when he's in the hospital, he just disappears, and there's all these uh, tips and secrets that make you think that he planned it or somebody planned it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we went over Rips, Orlando Anderson, Biggie Smalls, Suge Knight, P. Diddy, the JDL, and the fact that he's still alive, or the theory that he's still alive.
Yeah.
I think that just about covers Tupac for now.
Yeah. Pretty much what I got, yeah.
Is there any other things you wanted to throw out about him?
I think so. I think that's everything I've found, yeah.
I really like the albums that you tie together in the song lyrics.
Yeah. Crazy.
But along with all this violence and Tupac killing, now I think is a great time to transition into today's violence and the fact that the US has so much violence, social media, TV, movies, everything. So
yeah.
let's jump into this. What do you think's going on?
Personally, like my actual belief?
Yeah, let's hear it, man.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think there's nothing going on, but I don't know. After doing all this research and believing more and more that the government's just making us used to violence, you know, just adding more and more. You know, you see it more on crime shows and daily morning television than you used to, and you know, part of me wants to believe that they're behind. You know, they could be behind ISIS. You know, could be a U.S. thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I did a lot of research back in the day on Al Qaeda and all the terrorist groups back then. You know, 9/11's a big one. Just everything like that, and Al Qaeda was maybe not directly, but definitely funded by the U.S. government, like in some way. I mean, it could have been like accidentally, but it's in the history books that the U.S. government funded the people that ended up starting Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
So you can't really put it past them that they could do it again. You know, one strike's not enough. Maybe they need 2 strikes to get caught. Snowy, I think you might be onto something. I mean, yeah, you hate to think that the government would just create terrorist organizations and kill innocent people, but
you know, definitely.
As long as I can remember, there's been violence or insinuations of violence on cartoons, TV shows, movies, and now with social media, they always choose to go with the so-and-so was shot by a police officer or so-and-so was murdered, blah, 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 instead of so-and-so saves a person from this, or
right.
somebody rescues a cat from a tree, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
always pan more towards the violence, yeah.
Yeah, all of the news stations go towards the worst case scenario. And
right.
it is usually what gets the clicks. So you could argue, oh, they're just doing it because they need to make money and that's what's going to give them money, but at the same time, it could be just kind of getting it in the back of our heads, so when we see it in real life, we're not going to think much of it.
Right.
Like, I can't imagine, you know, back when I was a kid, it was always obvious that they're toys and whatnot, but growing up, there's been so many school shootings and whatnot that I can't imagine a kid today just, like, holding the gun and being like, "Oh, this is just a toy. This is a game.
Yeah.
I play this at home."
Right.
So I think part of that is definitely what's going on with what we watch and what comes through on the media and news. So is it the government controlling that to where they want to plant something in our heads, or
Yeah.
is it just society?
Right.
Because I think you and I both know that there's a lot of good in the world, but it's definitely not being shown.
Yeah, for sure.
So the question is, why isn't it being shown? Why is it always lean towards violence, and are we becoming desensitized to it?
Right. Uh, the other question is, if they are planting it, what are they? Are they just planting the idea that it's okay, or are they trying to like hide something from us as the citizens?
Right, that's another factor to bring up.
Right.
The fact, if we're all distracted by what's going on in the news, we're not going to look into anything the government's doing.
Right.
If it's not put right in front of our face, a lot of people don't go through the back door, so to speak, and do their own research.
Sure.
The
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, like Snowy brought up, the feeling that ISIS is also being backed by the U.S. government, or just maybe any government in general.
Right.
Yeah, man. I love. I mean, it's kind of sad, but I love looking back at like the cartoons that I used to watch. People will find clips of that are from the actual cartoons, and you're like, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Like you
For
got
sure.
so much like murder going on and just violence or sexual innuendos in cartoons that you're like, when did
God.
this happen?
Right. We have a 2-hour talk on sexual innuendos in cartoons.
It's crazy, man. And then
Yeah.
like I know all the shit on SpongeBob now. Like that was one of my favorite cartoons, and it's pretty out there that they have a ton of stuff like that, but I didn't know how bad like Mickey Mouse stuff was. Like I wasn't really into Mickey Mouse, but you look back at like the old Disney stuff, like even the black and white,
Right.
but like how long have they been training us on
Yeah, right.
on the violence? Like, is the government connected with all these companies that make the cartoons?
Yeah. Even
Like
going back to like some of the Disney stories origins, like those are violent.
I remember first hearing like Ring Around the Rosie and how it's about the bubonic plague and stuff.
Yeah.
Like we're just singing these we're singing children bedtime stories about death essentially.
Right.
Like, but we're singing in a happy tone so you don't notice. But yeah, it's obvious, it's out there. The only question is why, and is the government behind it? And this could go for any government, but it seems like the U.S. is definitely the leading role here.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've never lived in another country, so I don't know. I don't know how their cartoons are.
Nope. I've never been to another country.
You're right. Sometimes Florida might seem like another country, but
Yeah, that's fair.
as far as I know, it's still the U.S. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
the fact, I mean, we'd be really diving down the rabbit hole if we went into all the connections the government has with terrorist groups, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely out there and it's public knowledge for anybody that wants to do the research. The trouble is like and I say they like it's this big vague term, but it's almost like they're like trying to distract us from finding out the truth, I guess,
Right.
or what could be the truth. And instead of showing us, oh, George Bush's campaign paid for a lot of Al Qaeda's weapons that they got, and this was the first George Bush, I believe, was the one that started the funding. I could be wrong on that because it's been a while since I've researched it, but I know for a fact that it was the U.S. government that paid for pretty much all of the weapons that the first Al Qaeda group had.
I believe it was the original. I believe it was senior. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's just been carried on through different presidencies, and they that's kind of what happened over in Syria too. You know, when a country has like a civil war, the U.S. government tries to jump in and then pick which side they want better,
Right.
and then that side ends up being the terrorist group.
Yeah.
So fuck us, I guess.
Right.
Moral of the story: stay in your own country, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
Every time the U.S. tries to supposedly help another country, they just end up funding a terrorist group.
Right. Whether they know that or not, I guess. Or
Yeah.
they make us aware of whether they know that or not.
Yeah, Snowy, there's a lot of occurrences where people just disappear. Yeah, we need to stop funding them.
Yeah.
Shit, if it was my choice, I'd
Yeah.
hit that cancel
Right.
refund button.
Yeah. Cancel subscription.
Got the popcorn ready. We got Colin gambling in here, losing all his snark.
Rough day.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, all you can really do is just educate yourself and try to find the truth. You know, it's hard to say what's going on 100%, but get as much facts as you can and piece them together. I don't want you to think that everything's a conspiracy and you can't trust anyone, but you also can't trust everyone. So
Yeah.
find that middle ground and find as much truth as you can.
Right.
Or train somebody to become a high-ranking official one day so they can tell you all the secrets.
Yeah. And build your firstborn to become the next president and just let him tell you everything.
Oh man. That's the wave right there. Or start your own society out in an island you can buy.
Yeah.
Snowy for president, fuck those nerds. Oh man. Well, Snowy, if you want to be the US president, you gotta move here right now, 35 years from now, and then you can fake your fake your birth certificate.
Yeah.
Say that you've lived here your whole life.
Right.
We still got time. We'll make it. We'll know the truth eventually. We're gonna start a documentary right now. Starting today, we're gonna start videotaping your life and your your road to presidency. Or you can just become president without ever showing the face cam, so they'll never know.
Yeah, just never go on live television unless you're in like a full body green suit. Just chroma key it out.
Oh man. Yeah, all you can really do is laugh at it and then try to find out the truth eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing we can discuss, the supposed North American Union.
Ah, yes.
So maybe it's not just the US.
Right? Maybe the entire North American, the three major players are all in on it too.
Yeah, maybe it's not just us. Maybe it's the whole continent. We're just a bunch of shitheads. But I guess, to my knowledge, it's similar to the European Union in parts.
Right.
But obviously, we're in North America, not Europe. And it's, to my knowledge, is a theoretical economic union between US, Canada, and Mexico. It could involve other countries and in the North Americas. Yeah, in the North America. But the three major countries are the big players here. Um, Rumors of the same currency. I heard it was called Anamero.
Yeah, that's what I was finding too. Yeah, much
Um,
like the euro.
yeah, it seems like somebody's just trying to copy it and put and paste it over the
Yeah.
U.S. uh, yeah, man. What? Go ahead and give me some of the research you got. I'll see if I have anything different than
Uh,
you.
some things backing it, or more just like things about it.
Well, I guess first off, do you have any opinion of it? Do you think it's real? Do you
Personally,
think?
I think it's bullshit.
Okay.
Honestly, I really don't see the U.S. and Mexico getting along enough to make a union.
Yeah,
Not with what's going on lately.
maybe we're on the cusp of it, and then Trump got elected,
Yeah.
and Trump didn't like the North American Union, so he decided he wanted to build a wall.
Yeah.
Now we're just gonna be the Canada America Union.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, that guy. Yeah, I get that too. The people that take it really seriously. I mean, I like some of the research I read, and as far as like the facts, some of the facts are like true, but it doesn't mean that there's a union between the three countries.
Yeah. Right.
Um, to my knowledge, it all really kicked off just after 9/11. Everybody was very concerned with terrorism and kind of just everybody was kind of just shell shocked. So in 2003, they made a North American task force, and it basically is just security and kind of the three countries working together to make sure terrorism doesn't happen, or at least not in our countries.
Yeah.
Um, and then you kind of start diving down the rabbit hole, and people will say that the chairman kind of looked into NAFTA, and they went from a security agency to or union to uh economic, and just kind of started melding together.
Yeah.
I also read a little bit on a NAFTA superhighway.
Right.
So a lot of people that believe in the North American Union claim that there either is or there's going to be a superhighway going from Canada down to Mexico, obviously through the United States. And that would be used a lot for trading and kind of just working together as a union. Um, I don't have a lot of facts on it because it sounds like a fictional story.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody got bored at work one day and he's like, you know what would be really cool if there was a North American Union, just like the European Union, but
Right.
across the seas.
Yeah.
And then I bet like the last chapter in his book is going to be the North American Union against the European Union in one final war. And now we're talking about a theory of the North American Union, which is theoretical economic union between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. And then there's just a bunch of theories that kind of branch off of it. Is there anything, um, what do you have that, if we were going to pretend that this was real, what do you have that might back it up?
One common theme that I found against all my research is that most people that believe that this is in the works think that any natural disaster or terrorist, like domestic terrorist or domestic terrorism, was actually done by the government. Whether it was to just generally lower the population or to increase security on the population. So, like, people believe Hurricane Katrina was created by the United States government to just kill people.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about the government having control of of just the weather in general, but obviously,
Yeah,
um, hurricanes, tornadoes, stuff like that.
right.
It's definitely interesting and kind of leads back to the violence thing we were talking about with the government controlling what we see and what we get, basically.
For
Um,
sure.
it's interesting to think about. I think it'd be super fucked up if there's any truth to that, but
Yeah.
but we are talking conspiracies, and there's definitely shade. There's little sunbeams of truth that kind of go through the darkest parts.
Right.
Um, but then you have the people that see a little bit of truth and assume the entire thing is factual.
Yeah.
I'm just a dumbass bug, and we love conspiracy nuts. I I'm always on the fence. Like, I usually have a pretty strong opinion one way or the other, but I also am very open to hearing out everything. Yeah, with this, that would kind of fall under the North American Union thing. I think with what you're talking about, Bullfish, that we can't trust them because they're all working together to kind of control the civilians.
Right.
And we're probably gonna leave this out for another podcast, but you can also tie that to gun control as well. That's just a gigantic topic that we don't really have time to get into right now. But
no, we do not.
but yeah, anytime you're talking about the government kind of hiding stuff from us, trying to control us, gun control definitely becomes a factor into that. Because if citizens can't protect themselves, then the government has a lot easier job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the North American Union thing, it has some truth to it, and they could be kind of working together in certain aspects, but in general, I think it's total bullshit because I just can't see the U.S. government working together well with any other country, let alone let alone Mexico. And I think Canada thinks down of us as much as we think down of Mexico. So Canada's like fuck you, U.S. U.S. is like fuck you, Mexico.
Right.
So I don't think there's any real connection between the three of them. There could be like trade things going on. I'm sure there's probably is where they work together and kind of sneak trades through, could lead into drug cartels, stuff like that. But as far as a big old union working together, I don't see it. Especially not with the Amero.
Yeah. They couldn't come up with a better name.
Yeah, it's either the thing I saw was either the Amero or the North American dollar. It's like, yeah, that's real creative.
Yeah.
They're either stealing the euro idea or they're just putting dollar at the end of North America.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be one, like with this North American Union thing, or earlier when we were talking about US desensitizing us. It definitely could just be tactics to trick the citizens into working with them instead of trying to befriend us. They're just going to try to make us slaves almost.
Right.
Instead, back when there was actual slaves, they just kind of did it by force, but now they realize that's not going to work, so they're trying to psychologically make us slaves, I guess. Yeah, some people are just fucking crazy, man. I mean, it kind of leads back to being desensitized, man. I don't know if it's like everyone or just there's certain people that it really affects, but back when I was growing up, you wouldn't think that even if you like beat somebody up or give them wedgies, swirly, whatever, said something mean to them, you would never expect them to do anything, let alone actually threaten your life. or maybe they'd say I'm gonna fucking kill you, but they wouldn't ever even
Yeah.
consider actually doing it.
Right.
But now, if a kid is just mean to somebody for a while, then they end up planning to shoot the school up. Like
Mm-hmm.
shit's escalating. It's fucking crazy.
Right.
And I think, my personal belief on it is just the part of it is definitely media. Probably a big part of it's definitely media and social media, like just kind of desensitizing in a way. But another part of it is parents not taking control of their kids when they're young, kind of coddling them, catering to what they want, and then when they don't get what they want for the first time, when they have somebody bullying them, that they just are a lot more likely to trip. It's
For
it's just
sure.
it's just like a combination. Kids need the ass whooped. Hashtag. Yeah, like back, and our parents used to say stories. Back when I was a kid, I'd have to walk miles to school, stuff like that. Well, back when I was a kid, somebody would get bullied, and they'd get stronger, and then they'd not lash out about it. But now, when kids 20 years from now are gonna say, back when I was a kid, somebody got bullied and then they killed everybody.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
I'm a survivor.
it's just escalating.
Yeah.
No whooping equals school shooting. There's definitely a lot more to it, but when you simplify it, that's essentially what's going on.
Yeah.
The kids not being disciplined, and then everything in social media being about violence, everything on the news. My thoughts on social media is a way the government and higher ups to keep watch on the citizens. There has been, I'm sure it's everywhere, but there has been like people who found out iPhones always record you and stuff like that. So definitely shit like that's pretty scary.
Yeah. To
Social
go on
media.
that same thing, did you hear? It was, I don't know, probably 6, 7 months ago, about China implementing like a scoring system into their like public cameras.
No, I haven't.
Supposedly they would like track you, and they had like facial recognition, and they could like keep score on like how many good deeds you did every day, and if you reached X amount of good deeds or whatever, you got like a tax break or something. Can you be more obvious that you're just spying on your citizens? See
Shit,
if I can find something.
putting all of us on The Office.
Yeah.
Google stores things. Yeah, that's, they make it, they like try to sneak it in by like throwing ads in your face that you're like, how the fuck did they know I like this? It's like, I haven't searched this yet, but I was thinking about it. Like, get out of my head, Google. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that there's truths about it with like all phone companies, but it's just been very known that Apple is like always recording you, and some famous YouTubers actually did tests where like they called each other, and you could actually hear what somebody was saying like a couple seconds before they actually hit answer, or maybe it was like 1 second, but either way, like on my end, my phone's still ringing, but like right when I go to answer it, I guess if I was saying something, the person on the other end could hear what I said before I actually answered it.
Hmm.
Like that, I watched this big YouTube video on it, and like they showed it and everything. I was like, holy shit.
Right.
I wonder how many people hear me say, oh, fuck off, and then I answer the phone.
Yeah. Well, there was that one bug with the FaceTime calls where it would still like play the audio when you declined the call. Like, everybody was turning off FaceTime for like a month before Apple was able to fix it, but how long was that going on before it got leaked out?
Yeah, man, I think that's I think that's going on with like all cell phones and at whatever iPads, whatever you got.
Yeah.
Remember when Snowden let everybody know about NSA monitoring and everything? So my laptop's recording when I'm asleep. Yeah, part of me is like, whatever, dude. Record my life. You know, I'm a Twitch streamer. You can, I'll start doing it myself for you, so you don't have to
Yeah,
sneak
right.
around about it. But
Exactly.
yeah, technology is like the greatest and worst thing that comes. Like, it's a balance. It's a balance system. Something so good has to have something so bad to counter it, so you're back to
Right.
neutral. Yeah, man. I love talking about this shit.
Right. Same.
You're having fun conversations. You know, conspiracies are always a good time, in my opinion. Whether you believe them or not, it's just really good to talk about, or if you're on the fence. That does it for podcast number 2, Tupac, violence, and more. And I'm snarky up on everything. And we're here with Jackal MRB on Twitch and Twitter. Go follow him. Like his stuff. Jackal's gonna stream eventually sometime, so just turn on the notifications so you're ready for it. Thank you so much for being on, brother. Have a great
you got
night.
it. Thank you for having me again. You as well.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Snarky Up. I'm always a Twitter DM away if you ever want to talk. You can try Instagram too, but Twitter is just a lot easier. And I'll always respond to Twitter DMs no matter what. And if you ever just want to hang out, chat, whatever, you can hit me up in Discord. Workout videos on Instagram. Much love, everyone.